I would like to take a moment on behalf of the college to acknowledge the land we currently occupy and honor the native peoples who were its first inhabitants. Specifically, we honor the Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequots, Mohegans, and other tribal nations who are indigenous to the Namiag, now called New London, and the land surrounding the coastal Algonquin, also known as the Long Island Sound region. We appreciate their careful stewardship of the land over many generations and acknowledge the suffering endured through the historical period of settler colonialism. Finally, we express gratitude that these tribes remain as neighbors in this region, and we seek future opportunities for greater connection and partnership. As we continue our celebration today, I leave us with these words of blessing. All that is eternal within me welcomes the wonder of this day. May our hearts come alive to the invisible geography that invites us into new frontiers, to break the shell of yesterdays, to risk being unsettled and changed. And as we move into the year ahead, may this place be a safe place for us, a place of generosity of spirit and mind. May Conn be a place of discovery, where the possibilities that sleep in the clay of our hearts can emerge to deepen and refine our vision for all that is yet to come. Amen.
Thank you, Angela, and welcome to all of you who are joining us from near and far for this special event. I'm speaking to you from my office in Fanning Hall, overlooking Temple Green, as we mark the start of a particularly memorable year, a historic year in the annals of Connecticut College, and along with it, a first-of-its-kind fall weekend, celebrated from a distance. So this is a rare coming together of the whole Conn community across time and space. Convocation comes from the Latin convocare, to call together. The pandemic has so far prevented us from doing this in all the ordinary ways this year. And yet, if there ever were a time when we needed to be called together, it is now. In a week when the U.S. saw the number of coronavirus cases climb beyond 7 million and the number of deaths surpass 200,000. The circumstances call us to reflect on our mission, our values, and our deep responsibility to each other and to the world. And yet we are called, too, to express gratitude. Gratitude for beloved students, faculty, and staff working together again in person and through the miracles of technology. Gratitude for colleagues whose endless dedication and creativity has allowed students to flourish through challenging times. Gratitude for the entire community that has made it possible to begin a new semester safely. Gratitude for parents who have instilled strong values. Gratitude for generations of alumni who continue to bring honor to your alma mater. And most especially, gratitude for the newest members of our community, all those who are joining the college in a year like no other, a historic year that will no doubt shape our future in the profoundest ways. And so I want to ask all of us to extend our warmest Connecticut College welcome to the 3 new staff members, the 9 new faculty members, and the 449 new students who have now started their journey here, including 13 perspicacious transfer students and 436 vibrant, gifted, and audacious members of the historic class of 2024. It is a great honor to be with you and to declare this new year, the 106th year of academic exercises at Connecticut College, officially open. I've been waiting a month now to utter those words and to make the semester official. In that time we call BC, before COVID, the college would have held convocation on the evening before the first day of classes. It was a formal gathering, focused mostly on incoming students and held outside at the top of Temple Green. This year, our protocols at the start of school had students in quarantine until the second week of September. So convocation had to be postponed and reimagined. As a result, and to our benefit, we have been able to bring even more camels under the tent. And I must say, having a much larger number of students, faculty, parents, and alumni with us today to bear witness to the arrival of our wonderful first-year class and transfer students has made it worth the wait. I should also mention that in the past, when we have come together on a campus, Temple Green is festooned with flags representing the hundreds of countries and territories from which our students have come over time, the totality of our international alumni community. Our newest students process through, accompanied by bagpipes and drums, followed closely by faculty and staff wearing the colorful medieval academic regalia of the universities from which they earned graduate degrees. It's a special moment, both mirroring and anticipating commencement 4 years later, when you students will process on the lower green to receive your baccalaureate degrees. Because we did not want the class of 2024 to miss this moment, our college marshal, the plant professor of history, Mark Forster, made a special trip to Temple Green to lead you in a virtual procession among the flags and to recreate this rite of passage on screen. Thank you, Professor Forster. Now, our convocation at Connecticut College typically ends with a recitation of the matriculation pledge and the singing of the alma mater, and this year will be no different. The matriculation pledge is based on the college's long-standing honor code, and our alma mater is our traditional song, which happens to be turning 100 this year. This past weekend, members of the class of 2024 who are on campus participated in a socially distanced signing of the honor code on Temple Green. I'm glad that those of you who are not yet on campus can confirm your commitment by reciting the pledge with us today. And I'm also glad that our larger community of students, faculty, staff, alumni, and parents can renew our commitment with you. Both the pledge and the song bind us as a community through the power of shared values and through the power of a simple melody to connect us across time. The central event of Convocation, of course, is the keynote address. And my main role this evening is to introduce our speaker, who is with me here in Fanning Hall. But before I do that, I have just one final point to make. It's actually an observation inspired by the opening words of the book that we asked all our incoming students to read this summer. And it speaks in important ways to where we find ourselves at this moment, both literally and figuratively, as we welcome a new class in this historic year. The book I'm referring to is Crazy Brave by the U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo, a beautiful piece of writing that is part memoir, part poetic reflection, part spiritual self-help manual. Harjo organizes her exposition according to the 4 cardinal directions, starting not with north, but with east, because east, as she writes, is the direction of beginnings, an entrance, a door to fresh knowledge. One of the beautiful aspects of the Connecticut College campus that you may have noticed is the way it, too, is organized according to the 4 cardinal directions where the sun rises and sets. In our earliest years, at least, when the lower campus was being built around that open space we now call Temple Green, the first academic buildings, New London Hall, Fanning Hall, Bill Hall, Palmer, and later Cummings, were intentionally situated east, where the sun rises, while the residence halls, Knowlton, Harkness, Freeman, Jane Addams, and the Arboretum too, were situated west, where the sun sets, waking and sleeping, knowledge and reflection in an endless cycle. Harjo writes, "East is how the plants, animals, and other beings orient themselves for beginning, to open and blossom." And that, new students, is the direction we should all remember as we move through this historic year. The door to fresh knowledge, the ever-present possibility of opening and blossoming, of becoming. This is, after all, the promise of a Connecticut College education. So as we prepare to face even greater challenges in this year like no other, let's remember the direction of beginnings and do as Harjo tells us. Breathe the light in, Call on the assistance you need. Give thanks. And now, it is time for me to introduce our keynote speaker, someone who has spent her career helping students orient themselves to open and blossom. I'm speaking of Michelle Dunlap, Professor of Human Development. Professor Dunlap earned her BA in psychology with distinction from Wayne State University and went on to receive both the MA and PhD in social psychology from the University of Florida, where she got her start both teaching and counseling families for the Head Start program. For the past 27 years, we have been fortunate to have her expertise as a professor in our Department of Human Development and in the Connecticut College Child Development Lab School. She is an internationally recognized researcher whose work focuses on multicultural and racial identity, family dynamics, and personality development. Her long list of publications includes many articles and books, including her most recent book, Shopping While Black, an ethnographic account of marketplace discrimination. Not surprisingly, she has received quite a number of local and national awards, including in 2005, the Woman of the Year Award from the State of Connecticut African American Affairs Commission. In 2008, the Ernest J. Linton Award for Engaged Scholarship from the New England Resource Center for Higher Education. And then in 2018, the Eunice McLean Waller Award for Outstanding Work in Education and Community from the National Council of Negro Women. This past spring, Professor Dunlap was also honored right here at Conn with the Nancy Batson Nisbet Rash Faculty Award for Excellence in Research. In her almost 3 decades at Connecticut College, Professor Dunlap has proved to be an exceptional teacher, leader, and mentor on campus and in the local community, having served on countless committees for the college, on boards for local organizations, and for national professional associations, which include the New England Psychological Association, the Association for Women in Psychology, the American Association of Higher Education, Campus Compact, the Society for Psychological Study of Social Issues, and the United Community Family Services. With her demonstrated excellence in teaching, scholarship, and service, she is living proof of our mission of putting the liberal arts into action. Please join me in welcoming Michelle Dunlap.
Thank you to President Bergeron, and blessed evening to everyone participating in this convocation. My purpose this evening is to, 1, share a Tupac poem, 2, have us think about where we fit into the parts of the poem, and 3, how the poem ties to our own individual development, a liberal arts education, and our futures. The discipline of human development is the study of how and why people change over time, with the goal of examining all parts of a person's life, our past, present, and the trajectory of our future. It includes examination of our physical, cognitive, psychosocial, and spiritual, if it individually applies, as well as the interaction of all of the environmental systems and various contexts that surround us, including but not limited to the economic, the medical, the psychological, historical, etc. Most importantly, it examines the potential resources that can be engaged in order to help improve our developmental path. It's a very multidisciplinary field that here at Connecticut College is nestled within the interdisciplinary tradition of liberal arts colleges and education. So thinking about human developmental processes, interdisciplinary liberal arts, and Tupac Shakur is like normal stuff here. One thing that I have come to appreciate is a concept that I learned from a 1994 book by M. Shuja called Too Much Schooling, Too Little Education, A Paradox of Black Life in White Societies. Shuja argues that schooling is a form of learning that helps to maintain the status quo. It is a form of learning often imposed on Black, brown, and indigenous bodies that encourages the perpetuation of systems of oppression that, for example, keep the poor poor and the rich rich. It also is one of the many ways that our nation continues to have stronger than ever problems with health disparities, racism, violence, police brutality, the preschool to prison pipeline, mass child detention camps, among many other social oppressions. Unlike schooling, however, education is a form of learning that insists on interrupting the status quo. Its purpose is to emancipate so that people can have a voice to resist oppression and hopefully live more empowered lives. Education encourages questioning and engaging others while also demanding change in the policies and social structures that hinder healthy living. This concept of schooling versus education caused a gradual shift in my teaching over the years. For many, growth over time has been like a rose bush seedling trying to push its way through only a tiny crack within a long stretch of concrete. This is a concept that I learned through the poetry of Tupac Shakur. Although Tupac Shakur was a prolific rapper, he also was a teen poet with volumes of poems, most of which were written between the ages of 15 and 19. Tragically, Tupac died in 1996 at the age of 25, although he lived 5 years longer than he expected. He was convinced that the systemic conditions and violence surrounding him would kill him at an earlier age. Ironically, I used to think very stereotypically about Tupac until a beloved teenager educated me on who Tupac really was. I'm no poetry scholar, but I found myself captivated by Tupac's poetry and surprised to discover his teen ideals of gender, equality, feminism, faith in God, social justice, anti-drug abuse, and anti-violence. Tupac's Rose poem goes like this. Did you hear? Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's laws wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else even cared. I would like to take a few moments to talk about the rose, the concrete and its cracks, and the air or lack thereof. So first, there's the rose. It's an extraordinary image, a tiny, delicate plant or flower pressing and pushing so fervently to obtain fresh air that it pushes itself through a crack in concrete. However, with such extraordinary pushing can come burdens, even precarities and catastrophes that other people may not seem to face as often or even notice. Imagine the amount of work to push through this crack and the danger of being trampled on in the process by people who may not even grasp one's presence nor potential, and most importantly, one's right to be there. No doubt there are a bazillion interpretations, but thinking developmentally is my go-to, of course. Then the concrete. I see this very vulnerable plant growing underneath an extremely oppressive, hard environmental structure. I want to know who put that monstrosity of a structure there, who mandated it, who did the labor for minimum wage to build it, if they were paid at all, and who is benefiting from its presence. How were whole communities, whole tribes, even nations removed in order to make room for this structure? On whose backs has the concrete been poured? And what are the impacts of this even today? Why does any rose still have to push through concrete for the hope of growing to live a safe, prosperous, and fulfilled life? Indigenous, Black, and brown bodies huddled and buried under concrete slabs of white supremacy, incessant footsteps walking over us, inhabiting our ability to move freely and to breathe. We still can't breathe. And who's still getting rich off of this? These are education as opposed to schooling questions. This is for what a liberal arts education aims, or it should if it doesn't. I want my students to go out into the world with eyes wide open, trying to figure out how they can question, challenge, partner, and collaborate in order to break up some concrete and restructure things so that everyone has an equitable chance in life. Then there's the crack in the concrete. Poet and songwriter Leonard Cohen once wrote, "Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Thus, the crack may represent brokenness and imperfection to some, but to others, it may represent light, air, opportunity, and hope. Then there's the lack of air. We can consider that airlessness keeps people from breathing right, if at all, when living under poured concrete or heavy systemic structures. A lack of air may represent additional forms of inequitable, oppressive, exploitive, and violent practices, all of which can kill us. And then the dirt. In order for the rose to grow, there has to be some dirt somewhere. Dirt represents earth, nutrients, sustainability, strength, land, Blackness, Black pride. Thus, figuratively, under the concrete are the people, the communities who have been oppressed by all of the social structures that disproportionately have hindered Black, brown, and indigenous bodies. That invisible dirt where that rose is growing represents some of the strongest transplanted nations, tribes, and involuntary immigrants to ever exist on this earth. We are those whose labor and strength built this country, and we yet still hold the nation up. And we've tended to be a forgiving and loving people. Somehow we haven't burnt much down nor shot up hardly anything if you consider all done to us. If Black folks retaliated for all done against us during these 500 or so years, this whole country and everything in it would have burned down hundreds of years ago. In this decade of Trayvon, Tamir, Sandra, George, Tony, Brianna, and incalculable numbers of slaughtering, anyone who can't say that they would trade places with a young Black teen or adult right now is in no position to judge Black people or our allies as we try to cope and demand change. But getting back to the dirt. The dirt has concrete weighing on it, preventing it to breathe. Because of the nutrients, though, in the dirt, the constant inspirational pushing and sacrificings of the elders, the ancestors, the children, and the angels and God, even a rose seedling can manage to thrive where there is no air. This dirt is so rich and full of nutrients that America, as we know it, was built on it and has sustained itself on it. The nutrients in that dirt are what allow Black, brown, and indigenous people to make a way out of no way, and that same dirt also absorbs our tears. It's our creativity, our innovativeness, the richness of our cultures, our ancestral spirits and strength, our most often faith in God. It's our Negro spirituals and tribal chants, our community activists, our martyrs and allies. 4 precious little girls. Many skittle-eating or park-playing teenagers, and adults just trying to be. The concrete is American oppression as a whole. The dirt are the people who gave their lives to build this country with their own bare hands. The roses are the nation's generations of children who've been and continue to be crushed in a multitude of ways. Above the concrete, not only does the rose want to breathe, it wants to breathe fresh air. Quiet as it's kept, the folks accustomed to walking powerfully on top of the concrete are breathing air, but often it's not the fresh air that Tupac envisioned. Instead, many are breathing religious bigotry, racism, misogyny, heterosexism, homophobia, transphobia, greed, white supremacy, internalized racism, etc., and often don't even know it. However, many also are getting educated, but others rather stay steeped in any toxicity that gives them the historical advantages to which they generationally have been accustomed. But eventually, toxicity will choke the life out of everyone. In an interview, Tupac further elaborated on the rose. He said, "You try to plant something in the concrete. If it grow and the rose petal got all kinds of scratches and marks, you're not gonna say, dang, look at all the scratches and marks on the rose that grew from concrete. No, you're gonna be like, dang, a rose grew from the concrete? Dang, he grew out of that? He came out of that? That's what you should say. All the trouble to survive and make good out of the dirty, nasty, unbelievable lifestyle that they gave us." That's what Tupac said. Tupac recognized that his conditions were not his or his community's fault, but rather the conditions were created and imposed upon him by the structural forces that still, almost 35 years after his poem, still haven't changed much. Now, you might be asking yourself, where am I in this scenario? Am I a rosebush seedling? Am I the concrete benefiting on the backs of others with no debts to nor appreciation of that? Am I the richness of the resources that inspire and push the rose up as it struggles to find its way through tiny cracks? Am I fresh air, that is, someone who has the benefit of being on the other side, but also hopefully serving or partnering as a restorative ally who fights to change oppressive structures? Or am I the polluted air of racism, sexism, heterosexism, and exploitation? Which ones am I, and to whom do I owe gratitude and commitment? To whom do I owe remediation, reparations, and/or restoration for unearned privileges and benefits that I and/or my loved ones, my community, and society enjoy on the daily at someone else's or their descendants' cost? These are human developmental questions, as well as economics, education, biology, history, sociology, chemistry, psychology, and so many other disciplines questions. These are liberal arts education questions. These are educational as opposed to schooling questions. This is learning at Connecticut College, and if it isn't, it needs to be, because people unnecessarily are dying even as I am speaking. So in closing, in another interview, Tupac leaves us with this. He says, "You see, you wouldn't ask why the rose that grew from the concrete had damaged petals. On the contrary, we would all celebrate its tenacity. We would all love its will to reach the sun. Well, we are the roses. This is the concrete, and these are my damaged petals. Don't ask me why. Thank God, and ask me how, said Tupac. And herein lies developmental processes, some of the ideals of liberal arts education, Tupac, Trayvon, Brianna, and be it good or bad, each and every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dunlap, for giving us that poem and your powerful reading of it. And with your words still resonating, it's an appropriate time to affirm our commitment to the values that undergird an education at Connecticut College. Values that are all the more vital in this year as we strive to maintain a safe, healthy, and vibrant community of learning. And so, I'm going to invite our Dean of the College, Jefferson Singer, and Samira Jagirdar from the class of 22 and a member of the executive committee of our Student Government Association to introduce the Matriculation Pledge.
Our newest students learned about the Honor Code during orientation in August, and they signed the Matriculation Pledge that is displayed in the College Center at Crozier-Williams throughout their years as Connecticut College students. Today, we support their commitment by renewing our own commitment. And we do this by reciting the Matriculation Pledge together, reminding all of us to live according to the principles embodied by the Honor Code. Please join members of our community in reciting the pledge.
I accept membership into Connecticut College, a community committed to cultural and intellectual diversity.
I understand my obligation
To this community
under the Honor Code
and pledge to uphold standards of behavior
Governed by honor.
I pledge to take responsibility
for my beliefs,
and to conduct myself
with integrity,
civility
and the utmost respect
for the dignity of all human beings. I pledge that my actions will be thoughtful and ethical,
and that I will do my best
to instill a sense of responsibility in those among us who falter.
And now I would ask Fritz Volz, Chair of the Board of Trustees, to welcome the class.
Thank you, Jefferson. And now, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to be the first to welcome you, the class of 2024, and all new students as fully matriculated students of Connecticut College. Congratulations. You're entering Connecticut College during an extraordinary time, and in many respects, a challenging time for everyone. But I urge each and every one of you to seek to find within yourselves the capacity to be optimistic about the way forward. And since I'm a resident of Concord, Massachusetts, I'll leave you with a quote from a famous Concordian, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "The day belongs to those who work with serenity and great aims." I wish each and every one of you all the very best during your time at Conn, and welcome to the herd.
Thank you, Fritz, for those words of encouragement and for your leadership of the Board of Trustees, which means a great deal to all of us. And with your words adding to our collective commitment, we are ready to close this historic convocation. We will do it, according to tradition, by singing the Connecticut College alma mater. But this year, we want to do it in a special way because 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of this song. You will not be surprised to learn that in true Conn fashion, our alma mater was composed by a student, Edith Smith, from the class of 1920, to words by Olive Littlehales, class of 1921. After the first commencement in 1919, President Marshall realized the college needed its own song, so he mounted a student contest the next year. And from a large number of submissions, Edith's was chosen as the winner. That song, a lovely lullaby to the college, is now 100 years old. So, for this unique convocation event, we wanted to feature a unique anniversary performance of the alma mater with a choir of not just students, but also faculty, staff, and alumni, a virtual choir representing the Conn community and the talent our college is known for. We are grateful for the contributions of all who have participated, especially the students in our college choirs under the direction of Rachel Feldman, including several members of the class of 2024. So we offer the alma mater now as our final welcome to a historic class. And when it's finished, Convocation will end with one more song that sums up our Camel spirit. While you're listening, I encourage you to sing and dance and remember why you're proud to be a Camel.